Okay, I'm back, and today I'm not going to talk about GURPS. I'm going to talk about something more broadly universal in role-playing systems. That I think one of the coolest concepts in any sort of fantasy is the idea of the summoner, someone who conjures up all sorts of monsters who come in and serve as as the summoner's meat shield and as the summoner's attack force. And but anytime you apply this in a tabletop role-playing game, you run into a problem of action economy. One, you give a summoner too many additional things they can do on their turn, and they immediately they just have every additional action they can take. They suddenly become much more powerful than anybody else simply because they can do more, or they can do more different things. This is one reason why I think in D&D in the 5th edition, I noticed that a class, whenever they have like a beast companion or something like that, the beast attacking with you is always like a bonus action, or you have to spend your action to command it. So it acts as an extension or a replacement for your character's abilities, and not in a whole additional actor in the scenario. I don't really like that approach, but at the same time, in other role-playing games and in older D&D, like what you'd have to do is you'd have to command each one of your zombies or twig people or whatever it is that you summoned, and each one of those has to act on their own, which is a nightmare for the players, and again for the action economy. But two, I'm going to call this the bookkeeping problem. Right, you have more things to keep track of for you and for the game master. Keeping track of all their hit points. If you have different types of minions, they're different armor and weapons and damage types, and holy moly, it's just so much. But it's just time, right? Just the time you have to spend making decisions for each of these things. And even if you're not making decisions for each of these things, you still got to move each one at a time across the board and roll for each one's attacks. It is exhausting. And I think it's why, like in D&D, like I want to play a necromancer, a summoner class, and I can't, because at best I'm only going to have like 3 zombies on my side, and then they're going to disappear by the time the next encounter rolls along. Yeah. Like there are ways to get around that, I know that, but it is really hard to get there, and it's not the default. It's not the default summoner behavior or default army leader behavior. Okay. One thing that I thought was interesting that D&D 4th edition brought up and introduced was the concept of the minion. At least that's when the concept was introduced to me, where the minions basically have the same monster stats, but they only have 1 hit point, so you don't have any tracking of how many, of all your 50 different skeletons, which one of them still has, which one of them's been injured. No, it says you hit one of them, it just dies. But in that way, you still have each one occupies its own space. Each one you still have to move across the board individually. It is exhausting. So I want to look. So this is an idea that I had, and I'm throwing it out there into the world. And feel free to steal it for your games. I think this is something I want to do. I think other games deal with hordes and combat scenarios in a much more narrative and flexible way. But if your game is really more number crunchy and you kind of keep track of each of the combatants, this is kind of my proposed solution for that. So my proposed solution is to treat your summons as a status effect. And if that sounds really weird to you, you're kind of in good company, but let me explain. Say that over here, this is your summoner, and this is your horde, right? You have your horde out here. And as a summoner, you're going to send some portion of your horde on. You're going to send some portion of your horde on attack, and this is your horde on a defense. Okay, because what your horde does for you is basically one of 2 things. They are your meat shields, and they are your arm, your ability to attack or make things happen further away from you, to be able to control things in other places. So, my proposal is that you treat each one of your summons as basically, if you assign it to defense, that gives you a certain number of, say, temporary hit points. Let's use D&D terminology here. They represent temporary hit points. So as people come and attack you, they have to wade through your temporary defense. And maybe your horde also has its own AC. So when they attack you, they use your horde's AC, your horde's armor class. And then when they hit, you have your meat shields taking the hits instead of you as a summoner. So that's what the defense assignment is you use the horde's armor and lose horde HP, right, instead of your own, or instead of the summoners. As those hit points get whittled away, your horde diminishes until it's gone, and then you are exposed. I'll also say horde on defense. So what about area of effect, right? What about area of effect? Do you just always take that hit, or can your horde also protect you against that? And I would say maybe it depends on what your horde is composed of. If it's a swarm of spiders that can cover and armor you, that might be different from having a horde of skeletons that you surround yourself with. But in general, I'd say AoE, you would divide damaging effects by the size of the horde +1, and that +1 is the summoner, right? So now you're kind of dividing. So you take. So this is, and we'll add in. This is how much damage. How much damage the summoner takes, and then the horde takes full damage. So an area of effect attack may be able to maybe wreak havoc on your summoned minions, and I think that's fine. That's to be expected. Like, that's when you have a horde, you basically surround yourself with a whole bunch of weaker beings to protect you and to do your bidding for you. Area of effect is the counter to that, and I think that's fine. Maybe there's some special features that you can attach to your character in some way that protects them from that, but by default, I think they should be exposed to the full damage. But if they are surrounding you, they should be able to protect you from that damage. So that way, your horde can't just simply be bypassed to get to the summoner. And each horde member is going to have so much hit points. So when you, like, say, if each horde member has 5 hit points, when your horde takes 13 damage, 2 members of the horde die, and so your horde number will drop by 2, and your overall horde hit points is now total of 13 less. Alternatively, if it's a single unit attack, only one of your horde can absorb that damage. So it doesn't matter how much damage the enemy does to you with air quotes. The damage to your horde can only be 5 hit points. So it caps the amount of damage that the enemy can do to you. So I should probably write that down. So I should say here, so for single target attacks, cap damage to a single members HP. All right. I think that basically solves the problem as far as using your horde as a meat shield. Now let's switch gears here and look about your horde on attack vector. What I would do is I would represent your horde as a single token on the game. That way you're not having to move each token every single turn to get them to approach your allies. You can have one token represent an area, sort of like how, for example, dragons indeed. Any large creature or gargantuan creature is going to occupy more than one space. And you can just do the same thing with your horde. So that way you're moving a single piece across the board, and once it comes in contact with an enemy, I think you have one of two options here. One is keep the horde as its own separate sort of unit on the game board, but I would actually recommend that you treat them again as a status condition. So we talked about the status condition of your horde on defense. Now the status condition of your horde on attack, which is going to be that, so each turn, probably on the summoner's turn, so each of summoner's turn, okay. We'll put a question mark there because this might be better to do at the beginning of the person who's afflicted with the condition, okay. So on each of the summoner's turns, we'll say make an attack roll. All right, so the horde is going to make an attack roll, and for D&D, let's continue using D&D example. Add, size of horde to attack roll -1. Okay. So really add size of horde -1. So that way it's every horde member in addition to the first is going to make it more likely that the horde in general is going to hit you. And then what you're going to do is roll horde damage and multiply by the size of the horde. So that way you're only rolling once, right? Again, it's about time. It's about time. And bookkeeping. How many numbers do you want to keep track of, and how many times do you want to keep rolling that dice before you allow the game to move past the summoner's turn? So if you roll once and multiply, that solves that problem. Of course, if you add for each member of the horde and you just barely make their AC, you just barely hit, you're not going to deal not every member of the horde hit. So you're going to say roll horde damage and multiply by size of the horde minus the difference. What am I getting at? How do I articulate this? If the size of your horde gave you +2, so it's a horde of 3, and you hit their AC by 1. So if their AC is like 17 and you rolled a 17, all right, so you would hit with a 17, -1 from that, you would hit with a 16. You would not have hit with a 15, which is kind of like your base roll plus the 3 from the size of your horde, or plus the 2 from the size of your horde. So that means one of the members of the horde didn't hit. So I guess it would be this difference plus 1. No. It's this difference. This is the difference of how many members of the horde you subtract. You hit with here. You would say, okay, so I hit, but that was like 3 members of the horde, and with this difference here, one member of the horde didn't hit, but 2 members did. So this difference, yeah, that's what it is. The difference between the AC and the attack roll without the bonus. Okay, that's okay though. You get the general idea, right? I'm here to kind of give you a concept for how to deal with a summoner class being able to have a horde of minions with them. So this is basically how the horde on attack would work, how the horde on defense would work. You could extend this to, say, grappling. You want to say, go fetch me the go grab the paladin and bring him here, right? You'd have them roll basically a grapple check, and then you would resolve that more or less the same way. You're rolling strength to escape against their strength, and you just add the size of the horde to their strength roll. Yeah, so that's my idea. That's how I solve the summoner class. So you can play a summoner, you can have a whole horde of minions come in, and go from there. I should also say that your horde on attack, so they can be targeted, and then we're going to say see the horde on defense, right? But if they overshoot or they do an area effect, it's obviously not the summoner who's going to ultimately take the end bit of the brunt on that. It's really just going to be the horde. So what we need from the horde, so that in whatever game you play, let's keep using D&D. So the hordes. So the horde stats. Let's put a little block here for this. You have the members' individual HP. All right, you have the hordes. Let's call it the sum HP. All right, so just the total added up HP of all of its members. You have their armor value, which is going to be the AC. You're going to have the attack, your attack roll and damage of each member, and then just their other stats. So in D&D, it would be strength, dex, constitution, wisdom, intelligence, charisma. Anyway, and then if you have a horde composed of multiple different types of beasts, you would have a different stat block for each of your groups of monsters that you control. So I said summoner class, but this also works for swarms and armies. Yeah, summoner, swarms, armies. Yeah, that's my idea, and I wanted to share that with you, and I hope you enjoy that concept. And if it helps you in your games, let me know. And that's it. Thanks very much. I hope your creative journey is treating you well. Let me know how it's going in the comments below. Give me a like and subscribe if you'd like to hear more about this type of thing. I won't always be doing role-playing content like this. It's just kind of the kick that I'm on right now. But if you'd like to see more of it, let me know. Leave a comment. Go ahead and subscribe. And yeah, I hope your creative journey is going well. And thank you for being here for part of 9. Have a good day.